Chapter 1. The Arrest. English translation. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight. Heavy, viscous, as if the city itself was trying to wash away its filth but didn't know where to start. Ryan sat in his workshop, turning an old spark plug in his hands, listening to the drip of water hitting metal from the roof. The radio murmured in the corner. News, music, tire ads. It all blended into one endless hum until it went silent altogether. He stood, wiped his hands on a rag, lit a cigarette. When the door burst open, he didn't even look up right away. Two men entered, police uniforms, cold eyes. Ryan Collins? Yeah, something wrong. Stand up. You're under arrest for armed robbery and assault on a bank employee. Ryan laughed, short, nervous, unbelieving. You're kidding, right? I've been here all night. Ask Mr. Jenkins. He picked up his car, but the officer was already snapping handcuffs onto his wrists. You can explain later. For now, stay quiet. The chill of metal burned his skin. Outside, a siren cut through the rain. Neighbors stepped onto porches, whispering, "That's the mechanic, the one from the shop." He didn't resist. He just watched his life fade away in the rearview mirror of the police car. At the station, the air smelled of coffee and sweat. An old fan stirred the heat lazily around the interrogation room. Across from him sat Detective Lawson, tired, unshaven, the kind of man who'd seen too much to believe in anyone anymore. "Ryan, let's skip the act," Lawson said. "We got footage. White mask, pistol, $240, and a cashier with a broken jaw." "That's not me." "Sure. It's never you guys." Lawson spun a pen between his fingers, weighing whether Ryan was worth believing. "You've got a motive, Collins. Divorce, debt, wife gone to her sister. So what? Half the town's in debt. But not everyone's Ruger was found in the trunk." Ryan's eyes lifted sharply. "What? Registered to you. Prints all over it. And blood." He felt everything inside him collapse. "This is a setup. Someone. Lawson smirked. "What aliens?" Ryan fell silent. The words stuck in his throat. That evening, they moved him to a holding cell. For walls, a cot, a toilet, a light that never went off. His cellmate, a quiet man with a spider tattoo on his neck, just nodded and went to sleep. Ryan sat on the concrete bunk, listening to someone cry behind the wall. Not loudly, almost silently. He didn't know what was worse, realizing his life was over or believing someone wanted him erased. A week later came the trial. The prosecutor spoke loud, confident. The defense lawyer, soft, distant, as if he already knew the outcome. 3 witnesses. None of them met Ryan's eyes. The jury deliberated for less than an hour. Verdict, guilty. Sentence, 25 years, no parole. When the judge said the final word, Ryan didn't move. He only saw her, Claire, his ex-wife, sitting in the back row. She didn't cry, just lowered her gaze, like she was burying someone she used to love. Later, as they drove him to Elm Ridge Prison, he stared through the window. The road stretched endlessly, city, outskirts, desert. The sun was setting, the sky the color of blood. And somewhere deep inside, he understood everything that had been before was dead. Now began what would live under his skin. Chapter 2. The first day. The bus had been rolling down the desert highway for hours. The heat wavered in the distance, bending the air until the horizon looked like it was breathing. Inside, silence hung thick, only the low hum of the engine and the rattle of chains on the prisoner's ankles. Ryan sat by the window. His hands were cuffed, his legs bound. Beside him, a man in his 40s, eyes hollow, voice cracked like dry earth. He stared at nothing, whispering words no one could hear. "First time?" he asked without looking. Ryan nodded. "Need advice?" "I'll manage." The man chuckled, low and rough. "They all say that. Until the first night." Hours later, the bus began to slow. Beyond the dusty glass rose gray walls, barbed wire, and guard towers standing like vultures under the blazing sun. Elm Ridge Prison, a concrete fortress in the middle of nowhere. When the gates opened, Ryan felt something inside him break. There was no rowback. The guards barked orders as the men stumbled out. The sun stabbed at their eyes. The air smelled of rust, sweat, and fear. "Face the wall. Hands on your head. Don't look at the staff." Cold water burst from a hose, hitting their skin like glass. They were washed like cattle. Someone laughed. Someone else screamed. The world blurred into noise and humiliation. Half an hour later, Ryan stood in torn prison pants, holding a gray sack marked with his number. Number 47291. He was no longer a man, just a number. Block C, cell 218. A guard nicknamed Steve the Catcher led him there. Young, but with eyes that had forgotten mercy. Rules are simple, Steve said. Don't touch anyone, don't ask questions, and keep your head down. What if someone talks to me? Keep it short, or don't talk at all. Silence is currency here. The cell was smaller than he'd imagined. 2 bunks, a toilet, a cracked wall. On the top bunk lay a man reading a book. Sharp face, calm, cold eyes. He glanced up. New. Looks that way. Name? Ryan. I'm Lester. They call me the lecturer. Ryan smirked. Why's that? Because I read, he said, raising his book. And around here, that's rare. That first evening was a blur of noise, shouts, laughter, metal doors slamming, fists hitting flesh. The prison breathed like a beast, every sound another heartbeat in its chest. Ryan lay on the lower bunk, staring at the ceiling where shadows of the bars looked like a spider's web. He couldn't sleep. Somewhere down the hall, someone was praying, whispering, desperate. You don't belong here, said Lester quietly from above. Ryan looked up. How can you tell? Your eyes. The guilty ones, they're empty. Maybe I just haven't realized I'm guilty yet. Give it time. Everyone here's paying for something, even the ones who think they aren't. Morning came harsh and bright. They were sent to unload crates in the yard. The sun burned without mercy. Ryan lifted box after box until his palms cracked and bled. The guard stood in the shade, smoking, watching. A big man with a shaved head bumped into him. Watch it, rookie. That's my spot. Didn't see your name on it. Well, now it's written there. The punch came fast. Ryan hit the ground hard, tasting blood. Enough, a guard shouted. The man stepped back, grinning. Later, in the cell, Lester tossed him a damp rag. Get used to it, he said. You don't show strength here. You prove it. I'm not proving anything to anyone. Then you won't last long. That night, Ryan lay awake, staring into the dark. The same question echoed in his mind. Why me? Why had the system chosen him, out of millions, to bury alive? And yet, beneath the fear, beneath the anger, something else stirred. Not surrender, not acceptance, but resolve. If he ever got out, a year, 10 years, it didn't matter. He would prove that a man is more than a number. In Elmridge, morning didn't begin with sunrise. It began with the sound of metal. Keys clanged against bars. Someone cursed, someone prayed. When the cell doors opened, the whole block turned into a river of gray figures flowing through the corridor toward the mess hall. Ryan walked with them, silent, eyes down. Porridge, coffee, bread, and the heavy smell of bleach baked into every crack of the tiled floor. The lecturer sat by the window, eating calmly, reading a newspaper as if he were in a cheap diner instead of a prison. You really read every day? Ryan asked, sitting across from him. If you don't read, the lecturer replied, all that's left is counting the days. What are you reading today? The Triumph of the Human Spirit. He smirked. Irony, don't you think? He spoke evenly, with a quiet discipline foreign to this place. His voice, calm, measured, slightly mocking. Ryan realized it was the first time since his arrest that he wanted to listen to someone. After breakfast, they returned to their cell. The lecturer pulled a small notebook from under his mattress, filled with scribbles, quotes, and fragments of thought. I can see you're trying to figure out why you're here, he said. You're asking the wrong question. Ryan frowned. What do you mean? It's not why, it's what for. What for am I supposed to rot here if I didn't do anything? The lecturer shrugged. Maybe to find out who you are when everything's been taken from you. He looked up from his notebook, eyes sharp and calm. Freedom isn't a gate, Ryan. It's a state of mind. And if you find it here, you'll never lose it again. The day drifted by in a blur, dust, heat, guards shouting. But the lecturer's words stuck in Ryan's head. That evening, as the block fell into half-light, Ryan sat on his bunk. The lecturer was writing in his notebook. Were you ever out there? Ryan asked. We all were, he smiled faintly. I used to teach philosophy. Then I went to the wrong address and ended up here. For what? For telling people the truth too often. They prefer lies, especially the ones they pay for. He closed the notebook softly. Want some advice? Find a purpose here. Not revenge. Not escape. Purpose. Otherwise, this place will eat you from the inside out. A few days later, Ryan noticed the guards treated their cell differently. They didn't linger at the door. Other inmates kept their distance. The lecturer commanded respect, quietly, invisibly. No one said why. Sometimes men from other blocks came to see him. He would listen, write something on a scrap of paper, hand it back, and they would leave, either relieved or condemned. You some kind of therapist? Ryan asked once. No, the lecturer said. I just remind people they're still human. One night, Ryan woke to distant shouting. The lecturer was sitting by the door listening. Someone was being beaten beyond the wall. He didn't move. Get used to it, he said softly. That's the sound of a system doing its job. You're just okay with it? No, but if I start feeling everything that happens here, I'll lose my mind. So you've given up? The lecturer smiled faintly. No, I'm just waiting for someone who hasn't. Maybe that someone is you. Chapter 4, Marlowe. In prison, time doesn't move, it rusts. Every day looks like the one before it, until someone reminds you that you're still alive. In Elmridge, that reminder had a name, Sergeant Marlowe. He appeared one morning while Ryan was loading crates in the warehouse. Tall, broad-shouldered, streaks of gray in his hair, eyes the color of cold steel. He didn't need to shout. His silence did the job. Men lowered their eyes when he walked past. You're the new one, Collins? He asked, looking at the file. Yes, sir. Not sir. Here, you're just meat. Marlowe snapped the folder shut and stepped closer. I've seen your kind before. Think it's all a mistake? Bad luck. Everyone does, until they learn that bad luck is the only constant here. He dropped the folder on the floor and walked away. But from that day on, Ryan became his target. At first, it was small things. Marlowe would stop him at the gate, search him twice, give him the filthiest jobs. Then came the night inspections, the sudden glare of a flashlight in the face, a curt up, and silence. Whenever Ryan asked why, Marlowe just smiled. For still thinking you can be innocent. The lecturer watched it all quietly, almost philosophically. He's testing you, he said one evening. For what? Endurance. For humanity. He likes breaking people beautifully, so they can break others later. And what do you suggest? Just take it. I suggest you don't let him decide who you are. Weeks passed. Ryan noticed Marlowe appearing everywhere. The kitchen, the corridor, the laundry room. Sometimes he just watched. Sometimes he whispered to the guards, and they'd start whispering too. Rumors said Marlowe had served in the army once, then in some special unit. He'd been transferred to Elmridge after an incident. No one spoke of it aloud. One evening, Ryan was heading back from work. The corridor was empty, footsteps echoing against the walls. At the exit stood Marlowe. Stop, Collins. Ryan froze. I hear you're friendly with the professor. If you mean the lecturer, we just share a cell. He's smart. Too smart. I don't like that kind. They start asking questions best left unanswered. He stepped closer, close enough for Ryan to smell the smoke and metal on his breath. And one more thing. If I see you helping him again, passing his notes, say, I'll make your sentence feel like a vacation. Marlowe walked away, leaving behind the stench of cheap tobacco and iron. Ryan stood there, fists clenched, blood boiling. For the first time in a long while, he wanted to hit someone. But in Elmridge, hitting a guard was the same as signing your death warrant. Later that night, in the cell, the lecturer said quietly, Marlowe has a weakness. What kind? He believes evil is order. To beat men like him, you must show them chaos, but never let it consume you. Ryan said nothing. He sat on his bunk, staring at the concrete wall. For the first time since his arrest, he felt something new. Not fear, not despair. Anger. Cold, pure anger. The next week, the searches began. Cells turned upside down, personal things scattered. They found the lecturer's old pen and notebook. Marlowe stood beside the officers, smirking. Contraband. Violation of rules. Solitary, 1 week. Ryan stepped forward. It's not his. Then your week gets added to his. The door slammed shut behind the lecturer. The sound heavy, final like a gunshot. And Ryan understood then. Everything his mentor said about the system was true. It didn't just cage people. It tested who would still be human after everything was taken away. Chapter 5. The Escape That Never Happened. Night in Elmridge always smelled of dust and iron. Somewhere beyond the walls, the gates creaked, the generator hummed. The deep, steady breath of a beast that never slept. Ryan lay on his bunk, unable to rest. Since the lecturer had been sent to solitary, silence had changed its weight, sharper now, almost physical. Without his voice, the cell felt dead. Every sound echoed too loudly. dripping water, the guard's footsteps, the slow thud of his own heart. He didn't know how long he'd been awake when he heard a faint rustle under the bed. Reaching down, his fingers brushed against a piece of cloth. Inside it, a torn fragment of the prison map and a small key. On a strip of paper, one short line. Tonight, after lights out. Ryan froze. His pulse pounded in his ears. He didn't know who had left it, but everything about it screamed trap. Too obvious. Too perfect. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a quiet thought whispered, what if it isn't? What if this was a chance? A sign from the lecturer himself. When the lights went out and the cell doors clanged shut, Ryan lay still, staring into the dark. The world held its breath, waiting for his choice. He could throw the map away. He could call the guards, say he'd found it. But the thought that someone thought he'd be predictable, that he was being played, pushed him the other way. He swung his legs down silently. The air was heavy, muffled. He turned the handle. The door creaked and opened. That never happens, he thought. Never. Step by step, he moved down the corridor. No voices. No footsteps. Just the hum of the generator and the taste of fear in his mouth. He followed the map until he reached a side exit. Beyond it, moonlight, the fence, the towers. Freedom only a few steps away. And then the floodlights snapped on. A siren screamed through the night. From the shadows stepped Marlowe. I told you, Collins, he said evenly. You wouldn't last. Guards tackled Ryan to the ground. Hands wrenched behind his back, metal biting into skin. Shouts, boots, laughter. Marlowe crouched beside him. You know the funny thing? He whispered. You could have just stayed quiet. But no, you needed truth. He leaned closer, breath sharp with smoke. Now you don't even have a name. Just a number. The next 3 days were nothing but darkness. No light, no sound, no sense of time. Only the drip of water and his heartbeat, the rhythm of madness. He didn't eat, didn't sleep. Pain became distant, like it was happening to someone else. On the third day, the door opened. Warden Garrett stood there, calm, precise, holding a file. You know what's strange, Collins? He said, flipping through the papers. We reviewed the camera footage. And nothing. No sign you ever tried to escape. Because I didn't. Garrett stared at him, calculating. Maybe. Or maybe you just weren't caught on camera. He closed the folder. Either way, your file's updated. Potentially dangerous inmate. Ryan said nothing. When the door shut again, he laughed quietly. The first sound he'd made in days. Not because it was funny, because he finally understood. In Elmridge, truth and lies were the same thing. They just changed names depending on who held the keys. That evening, they brought him back to the block. The lecturer had just been released from solitary. He looked older, thinner, but his eyes still burned with that calm fire. They hurt you? Asked Ryan. No, you. They tried. And I'm still here. The lecturer nodded. Then you've already won. Later, as darkness settled over the cells, Ryan lay on his bunk. If they'd wanted to break him, they were too late. Fear was gone. Only one thing remained. The question, who had slipped him that map? Because if it wasn't Marlowe, then someone else inside Elmridge was playing the same game. Chapter 6. The Night Incident. After the escape, Elmridge fell silent. Too silent. Even the guards moved slower, as if they were waiting for the walls themselves to start talking. Ryan could feel Marlowe's eyes on him everywhere, in the yard, in the cafeteria, near the laundry room. He didn't come close, didn't say a word, just watched, as if waiting for Ryan to make his next mistake. One night, when the guard made his third round, Ryan woke to a strange sound. At first, he thought it was dripping water. Then he realized it was breathing. Heavy, ragged, too close. He sat up. His cellmate, Lecter, was asleep. The sound came from the next cell, from a kid named Reddy, a jittery petty thief who was always on edge. Hey, you alive in there? Ryan whispered. A low moan was the only reply. He got up and stepped toward the bars. Moonlight leaked through the narrow window, barely illuminating a figure on the floor of the next cell. Reddy wasn't moving. A dark stain spread across his chest. Guard! Hey, someone's dying in here! Ryan shouted. Doors slammed open, sirens wailed. Everything blurred, footsteps, yelling flashlights. The guards burst in, dragged Reddy out. He wasn't breathing anymore. Minutes later, Marlowe appeared. Flashlight in hand, face carved with cold satisfaction. Who saw him first? He asked. I did, Ryan said. Marlowe nodded. Of course. The search began instantly. Ryan's cell was torn apart. Under his bed, a shiv, sharpened metal, wrapped in cloth. Blood on the handle. "That's not mine," he shouted. Marlowe didn't even look at him. "I know, but who's going to believe you?" After that little escape stunt, they threw him into solitary again. This time not as a rule breaker, as a murder suspect. For the first few hours, Ryan didn't think at all. He just sat on the concrete floor, feeling the cold crawl into his bones. Then came the thoughts, how everything fit together, how Marlowe built the trap piece by piece, and how there was no way now to prove he hadn't put the metal into Reddy's chest. On the third day, the door opened. Warden Garrett stood in the doorway. "Well, hero," he said calmly, flipping through a folder. "Bad news. They're charging me? Not yet. But if the DNA matches, you're done, Collins. Literally." He paused. "There's an option. You tell us who helped you during that escape, and this all goes away." "I didn't have any help." "Then get used to this room." When Garrett left, Ryan sat staring at the wall for a long time, and suddenly realized that for the first time in months, he felt neither fear nor anger. Just exhaustion. He whispered into the dark, "If this world wants to make me a killer, it better prove I'm still alive first." That night, the door opened again. Without a sound, Lecter stood in the doorway. "Ow!" Ryan started. "Better than I look," Lecter said quietly. "How did you get out?" "Doesn't matter. Listen, it's not Marlowe." Ryan frowned. "What? He's just a pawn. There's someone higher. Someone cleaning house." Reddy knew too much. "Knew what?" "About the shipments. Smuggled goods. The money goes through the guard block." Lecter's voice dropped. "They picked you because you're perfect. Clean record. No one cares." Ryan closed his eyes. "So it's all just a game?" "No," Lecter said. "It's the system. The game is only beginning." When he left, Ryan was alone again in the dark. But now he had something he hadn't had before. A purpose. Not just to survive, but to find who orchestrated it all, and escape to tell the truth. Chapter 7. The Interrogation and the Hole. In solitary, time doesn't exist. There are only two states, light and darkness, and both hurt your eyes the same way. Ryan stopped counting days. He measured time by sound. The guard's footsteps, the metallic clang of the food tray, a scream from a nearby cell that went on too long. After a while, he couldn't tell if it was someone else screaming or him. Sometimes he dreamed he was home again. His wife making coffee, his son playing in the next room, sunlight spilling through the curtains. He would wake to the smell of dust and blood, realizing that all that was left of that life was memory, and memory hurt worse than the bruises. On the fourth day, they took him out of the cell. 2 guards. No words. No explanation. They led him down a long corridor that smelled of bleach and sweat. The interrogation room was bare. Just a table, 2 chairs, and a camera in the corner. Marlowe sat at the table, a folder in his hands. Nothing on his face. "Sit down, Collins." Ryan obeyed. "Why am I here?" "I just want to talk. Heart to heart." He opened the folder. Photographs. Reddy's body. Blood on the floor. The knife. Marlowe flipped one over. Fingerprints. "A match," he said. "It's a setup." Of course. Everything in life's a setup. The question is who's setting up whom. He leaned forward. "I've seen you type before. Stubborn. Believing you can stay honest. Problem is, honesty doesn't survive in places like this. It dies first." Ryan said nothing. "Want some advice?" Marlowe went on. "Confess. Say it was self-defense. Or an accident. We'll lighten your sentence. You might even walk out someday. I didn't kill him." "That doesn't matter." Marlowe stood, came closer, put a hand on Ryan's shoulder. "Here, what matters isn't what you did. It's what you'll sign." After the interrogation, they took him back to the cell. He walked stiffly, legs trembling from exhaustion and rage. Lecter's words echoed in his head. He believes evil is order. And Ryan finally understood. That's exactly what Marlowe was doing. Try to convince him that lies were order. On the 5th day, Lecter appeared, quiet as a shadow. "You look worse," he said, sitting down. "They want me to sign a confession." "Of course they do. Makes their work clean." "What would you do?" Lecter smiled faintly. "I'd write the truth. They don't care. Not for them. For you." He took a small piece of paper and a pencil from his pocket. "Write everything. What you saw, what you heard, what you felt. It won't get out. I know. But when you write, the wall gets thinner." Ryan began to write. At first, short phrases, then longer ones. He wrote about home, about his son, about the first time he felt the wind smell like freedom, and how that smell vanished behind iron gates. When he finished, the page was covered in uneven, trembling handwriting. Lecter looked at it. "See," he said, "now they've lost power over what's inside you." The next day, the door to solitary opened. Not guards this time, Garrett the warden. "Congratulations, Collins," he said dryly. "Charges dropped." "What?" "Forensics confirmed. The blood on the knife wasn't Reddy's. You're clean." Just like that. Nothing's ever just like that. The one who planted it is in isolation now. Ryan stared at him. "Who?" Garrett smirked. "Better if you don't know." He turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. Sometimes the truth survives on its own. Collins. Just because it gets bored hiding. When the door closed, Ryan smiled for the first time in a long while. Not out of joy, just peace. He understood that something had shifted. He was no longer the man who'd been dragged into this place. Now there was more steel in him than skin. Chapter 8. The Letter from Home. In prison, time doesn't move forward, it just circles around itself. Every day feels the same. The morning clang, the count, the tasteless stew, yard time, and the walls. Always the walls. But that day, something changed. When the guard slid an envelope through the slot, Ryan didn't recognize it first. He hadn't received a letter in over a year. Not since Emma stopped writing. He stared at it for a long while. The paper was wrinkled, one corner burned, as if it had passed through fire. On the back, her handwriting, familiar, trembling. He sat down on the bunk and opened it. The first words wavered. "Ryan, I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe because I can't not write anymore." He read slowly, afraid to blink. "You were right when you said the truth always finds a way out. I learned that they try to frame you. But the thing with the knife wasn't your fault. I'm sorry I didn't believe you then. I was just tired of being afraid." He ran his fingers over the ink, as if he could feel her voice through the paper. "Sam misses you. He started school. Sometimes he asks why he can't visit you. I tell him you're away on work. I don't know if that's right, but it's the only way I can say it." And at the end, a few words that made his chest ache and warm at once. "If this ever ends, come back. Not for me, for him. He's still waiting." Signed, Emma. Ryan sat still for a long time. He didn't cry. Tears lose their meaning in places like this. But something inside him shifted. A fine crack appeared, and through it, like light through a fissure in the wall, hope seeped in. He folded the letter carefully, as though afraid to damage it, tucked it beneath the mattress, and for the first time in months, he allowed himself to dream. That evening, he stepped into the yard. The sky was clean, starless, only the white glare of floodlights. But even under that cold light, the world seemed different. Lecter stood by the wall, smoking. "News from the outside?" he asked without turning. "A letter. From her. And she's waiting." Lecter nodded slowly. "Then you've got a reason to make it out. And you?" He crushed the cigarette under his boot and smiled faintly. "Me? I want to see you walk free." That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He lay there, listening to someone whispering in the next cell, to a drop of water falling from a pipe. The world was the same, but inside him, something was steady now, quiet and unbreakable. The memory of home no longer hurt. It had become direction. He knew this wasn't the end. He would get out. He would return. And maybe, someday, he'd tell his son why it all had to happen.